I've been training for this flight for approaching 4 years already. And it's a really long, iterative process. And it's all simulation and preparation and visualization.
Over the past 3 years, this has become Chris Hadfield's home away from home. This is Star City, about an hour drive from Moscow, the heart of the Russian space program, the very place where Yuri Gagarin prepared for his historical spaceflight more than 50 years ago. The training center now bears his name.
That's the centrifuge. We'll be going in there. Soyuz simulators in here.
For Chris Hadfield, it's like a new beginning. Almost 12 years after his last flight in orbit aboard the US space shuttle, he gets to fly again. And his next taxi to space comes from Russia. Quite a stretch for this ex-fighter pilot who used to intercept Soviet planes in Canadian airspace at the height of the Cold War. For him, this meant he had to start again from scratch, learn the Russian systems, and prepare for his longest flight yet, 6 months in space. The training is long and demanding.
When you train for a space station flight, it is a long solo training flow for years, and you learn so many things in so many different places.
For Hadfield, one of the most daunting tasks was learning to fly the Soyuz rocket, a long and complex process. And an important one, a matter of life and death.
One of the main purposes of the training was to really understand all of the things that can go wrong so that it removes the fear. My job is at contact отделения, when we have the necessity to separate from the rocket ship. If I notice within 15 seconds of getting to orbit that we haven't had separation, then I reach up, throw that switch, push these up, and push these two guys here. Otherwise, we may not survive.
Trouble is, of course, all these buttons that can save your life are written in Russian. So for Hadfield, mastering the language became one of the main challenges.
Сейчас я говорю по-русски, поэтому нужно говорить по-русски. Мы знаем, это русский корабль, это не английский, это не французский корабль. Потому наш профессоры, наши учебники, все только по-русски. Но, вы знаете, я не говорю по-русски, я говорю по-союзу.
In Star City, Chris Hadfield was able to tap into a long and established tradition of space travel, training under the supervision of the last Soviet cosmonaut, Sergei Krikalev, a national hero here.
And how many days total have you been in space?
I mean, 6 flights.
In 6 flights.
A little more than 800.
800 days in space. So Sergei's lived in space longer than any other human being.
July 2012, Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. It's T-3 days. For Chris Hadfield, it's a very important moment. He's a member of the backup crew for this launch, which means he could take off 6 months earlier than planned. He's on location, in quarantine, ready to fly. For him, it's a great opportunity to see up close the space vehicle he'll soon be inside. A rocket that was designed more than 40 years ago. Old, but safe.
It's an excellent spaceship with a long, good track record, and it is one of the very few vehicles on Earth that is capable of reliably and repeatably, safely taking people to space and back.
Chris Hadfield will soon become the third Canadian to go into space on board one of these Russian-made Soyuz rockets. And in the spring, he will make history as the first Canadian ever to become commander of the International Space Station. July 15 in Baikonur, Kazakhstan. Early morning. The Soyuz rocket is ready to launch, and so is the regular crew. Chris Hadfield is off the hook.
For me, standing here on the sidelines, it's one of the worst places to be an astronaut because I'm powerless.
Everything goes as planned. The crew reaches orbit within minutes.
What just happened today is right at the edge of what we're capable of doing. to take 3 people from a standing start and get them going 8 kilometers a second in under 9 minutes is just barely possible. If you're willing to kill people all the time, you could do it pretty easily. But if you want to do this safely, it is just barely possible.
Fast forward to the end of November. Chris Hadfield's training is officially over. His turn has come to ride the Soyuz rocket. In keeping with tradition, he gets to sign the guest book in Yuri Gagarin's office, unchanged since his death. Then, to lay flowers on his grave on Moscow's Red Square.
But I appreciate you scurrying.
A few minutes of sightseeing with his wife Ellen around the Kremlin. That's pretty much the only spare time he's allowed before takeoff. Soon after, Chris Hadfield leaves for the launch site in Baikonur, Kazakhstan, ready to walk again in the steps of the greatest legends of space conquest, to once more fulfill a lifelong dream.
You become an astronaut. That defines who you are. And I feel exactly the same excitement that I did as a 9-year-old boy dreaming about maybe someday flying in space.
Jean-Francois Belanger, CBC News, Baikonur, Kazakhstan.